Spotlight the Premier there, Mr. Magashule, having delivered what is now known as SOPA, State of the Province address, yesterday. Let's take a look at what he had to say and a closer look at some of the issues raised. Peter Ndoro is there at the SABC TNA. Peter, a very good morning to you once again. It's over to you.
A very good morning to you, Ayanda, and thank you very much for joining us wherever you may be watching this program from across South Africa and across the continent. Yeah, we're in the Free State today, and more specifically at a farm school called Bainsvlei Combined School. And this is a school with both primary and high school. And we're going to tell you a little bit more about that because yesterday it was the State of the Province address by the Premier, and he gave us I guess, an assessment of where the province is and some of his hopes and wishes about where he's going to take the province going forward. And education is one of the pillars upon which the province is being built, and we're going to be unpacking that as well with our panelists, and you're going to meet the MEC for Education shortly. But let me introduce our guests and start unpacking this. And don't forget, you too can be part of this conversation at home at Morning Live SABC, #TNABizBrief. The state of the province of the Free State. Let's explore and introduce our guests. And we say a very good morning to Premier Magashule. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Welcome to the program.
Always a pleasure, sir.
Next to you, Mr. Education himself, the MEC for Education, Mr. Tate Makgoe. Thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure to talk to you as well.
Thank you very much, Peter.
All right, somebody perhaps our viewers may not be totally familiar with, but he's the Director General in the Office of the Premier here in the Free State, Mr. Kopung Ralikontsane. Thank you very much for joining us and welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning to you too.
And next to you, we have the principal of Bainsvlei Combined School, and it's a lovely, lovely school. We're going to talk a little bit about the school and some of the achievements that your school has managed to do, and also a significant, I guess, development that's taken place today as well. So to you, Mr. Seheri, thank you very much indeed for joining us and welcome.
Thank you, Peter.
All right, so Premier, yesterday, very important speech, and I guess for many it might have been one of the most important, given the challenges that we're facing economically, drought, so many issues on the table. The province needed some guidance, some inspiration, and a way forward. Just take us through some of the big themes that you shared with the people of the Free State yesterday.
Well, it's the same priorities which in 2009 the ruling party committed to South Africans, that will give them better education, will focus on issues of health, rural development, decent jobs, and ensure that there is peace and stability in Africa, not only in South Africa. And I think the speech was really about those 5 priorities since 2009 election manifesto.
2009, 2016, how much would you say we've progressed in that time, Premier?
Well, we have done a lot. We have done a lot. For instance, if we look at education, let's talk about farm schools. We have transformed farm schools. Lots of kids, almost 4,500, are no more traveling, walking kilometers on road. They are at boarding schools, and we move from 12 to 35 boarding schools around the farms throughout the Free State. It's a complete milestone. It's an achievement. And we have also done a lot of things around ensuring that young people go to school, from the ECDs to universities, internationally and locally. We have a lot of students. As I said, almost 400 of them. In the next 2 weeks, some will be leaving for Russia, Belarus, and Bulgaria, and as well as United States of America. So it's quite an achievement, and we are working together with our universities, both in South Africa and here in the Free State.
All right, we'll talk a little bit more about education in particular, but also I guess some of the other issues that you've had to address in your speech. But let's turn our attention to education. Tate, Makgoe, your province has always kind of done well, and I think the Premier yesterday said, I think since 2012, you're the 80s province. Not meaning that you're back in the 1980s, but you're scoring above 80% with your matric pass rates.
Yes.
Have the standards continued to rise? We've just heard a little bit about some of the achievements. Give us your state of the province in terms of education.
No, Peter, I think you need to correct your English there. We have not kind of done well, we have done extremely well. If you look at where we come from, remember the province of the Free State used to be number 5, number 6, and so on. And then we were hovering around the 69% and thereabouts. And I think for the fact that after so few years, we are now priding ourselves that for 4 or 5 years in succession, we've been performing at above 80%. It's very, very significant. And one of the things that we are not communicating effectively is the quality of the results. You know, I don't know how many provinces have about 10 black kids or so whose average, you know, the total average of their matric pass rates are above 90%. We do have that. I don't know how many provinces have the top, for example, if you talk top maths, top 6 learners who got all 98% in mathematics. I don't know how many of them would boast that 4 of those learners are from the township schools. So we are doing well. I don't know how many provinces would boast that if you take accounting for an example, in our province there are 3 learners who got 100% each. One of them is a township learner from Makgoe. I don't know how many provinces would boast that when you take physical science, for an example, the top learners got 99% in physical science, one of the most difficult subjects indeed. And then one of them is black. So I think the difference that we are making, especially in the township schools and the farming schools, actually ensures that you cannot say we are merely doing well. We are doing extremely well.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, so Mr. Ralikontsane, I'm going to come to you just now, but I want to stay on this education theme briefly, and I'm going to come to you, Principal Seheri. We're at this beautiful school here. It's a farm school, but when I look at the setting and the buildings, I mean, this could be right in the middle of town. And I just want perhaps to get a sense of the things that you've been able to do here. What has happened over the years, the starting point, and how we've gotten to this wonderful, wonderful facility for the kids in the area.
Okay, thank you, Peter. When I first came here, 2010, the school had achieved 14% in 2009. I was a new principal in 2010. So I called my staff, and then we had a turnaround strategy. Now, by the end of 2010, we had 80%. We moved from 14 to 80%. The following year, we had 100%. That was 2011. 2012, we had 93%. 2013, we had 100%. 2014, we had 96%. 98%. Last year, we had 96%. It's all about team effort. You know, I think I'm blessed to have to be running a happy school. I've got happy teachers, happy learners, happy parents. I think this is the key. Then we actually had very limited resources, but we never complained that we don't have resources, because I strongly believe that the best resource that we can have is a teacher. There's no better resource than a teacher. We can have resources, but if teachers cannot teach effectively, you will achieve very little or absolutely nothing at all. But then during the year 2010, we called the MSC. In fact, the MSC came to ask as to how did the school underachieve 2009. Then I was a new principal then. There was very little that I could tell as to what went wrong that the previous year. But we made a special request to the MSC that if we could build a hostel. Now I'm proud today because the MSC listened to the community's request that we are officially opening this new facility. And I must add that this facility will help us, to add quality to our results. We'll be producing 100% with quality, because the province needs 90-40, that is minimum of 90% and 40% bachelors. But we as a school, I've promised him that we'll be getting 100% pass rate and a minimum of 50% bachelors. This is the minimum that I've promised the MSC for Education in the province. And lastly, I must say, this facility has restored the dignity of this farming community. Unemployment is very rife, but this facility has resulted in 25 members of the community getting permanent employment. And this facility is not only going to be used by the school, it's also going to be used by the community. For example, if they have got weddings, they are more than welcome to come and use the facility. Church services, meetings as well. Then when it comes to our learners, I hope that our learners were traveling long distances. But with this facility, they'll no longer be traveling long distances because they are based in this facility. Learners won't be complaining of hunger because they get 3 meals a day for free. So as a result of that, there's no need why we cannot really perform. Thank you.
Okay. So really giving the kids a chance, because transport's a big issue, isn't it? But we'll explore that a little bit later on and also talk about some of the things that you did. But DG, if I could turn to you, when I asked Premier to give us some of the broad themes about his speech yesterday, he went straight for education. I know he's passionate about that. But perhaps you could just give us a little bit of some of the other things that he touched on yesterday.
No, thanks, Peter. We in the administration, basically, it's when government has set priorities, it's for us to indicate, to ensure that we have got a functional administration that will ensure that we are able to deliver on those priorities. We have, as an administration, to develop an integrated planning, also develop clear integrated service delivery model. And further, we need then to ensure that we are able continuously to monitor how government performs. So from those 5 priorities, yesterday the Premier was able to reflect quite directly on how we have been able to do on education and how we have been able to plan jointly, working with the MSC for education delivery in the province. He also alluded to health as one of the critical delivery requirements for the provincial government. You would see that in the past there has been issues around the health department in our province. We've ensured that there are various intervention processes to ensure that we are able to rescue the department from deteriorating any further with regard to issues that were raised by the communities out there, interventions in hospitals, interventions in ensuring that clinics are able to function properly with proper staffing and proper medication available all the time. He has been able to reflect also on human settlement, our processes of ensuring that we are able to move quite faster in developing integrated human settlement, where it's not only about provision of housing, but where we are able to ensure that other concomitant services are provided in any area that we develop. Either it is a full removal of informal settlement or informal settlement upgrading, we then need to ensure that there are other concomitant services. He's also made reference to how we have been working on issues of crime relating to also improvement of our roads in the province. We one of the provinces that when we came in 2009, we were faced with very serious deteriorated roads in our province. We had to work hard to sacrifice other priorities to ensure also that we have got functional roads that can also assist in terms of economic development, especially also working on rural roads, which are quite critical for functionality of the farmers from their farms to areas where they deliver their produce to the silos and so on. He also made clear and quite reference to how we intervene on matters of social development, stabilizing our communities, the safety net, which is quite one of the important areas, because whilst we are trying to create jobs, developing the economy, we also have to ensure that there's a safety net and intervene as far as possible. But the Premier later on referred to how we have stabilized the administration on various areas, including matters of governance, matters of financial management, and also made a reference in relation to how we have ensured that our delivery model is integrated with other spheres of government, local government, provincial government itself, and the national departments that find space at the province.
All right, and you said administration is your thing. Premier talked about lean and mean, doing more with less. Are you geared for that kind of administration?
Yeah, the Executive Council of the province has made a telling pronouncement in as far as the management of human resources concerned. For quite a considerable time, we've decided to abolish any other post that had remained vacant without being funded, to ensure that we can only fund the positions, we can only fill positions that are properly funded. We've also ensured that departments do not willy-nilly fill posts. The responsibility has been elevated to the Office of the Premier and then the MEC for Treasury to ensure that when advertisements have been done, at that level we need to make a decision whether the department can proceed to fill the positions or whether maybe they can still do without that particular position for some time. So to keep a lean and very effective administration, those are some of the processes that we've put in place.
All right, Premier, I'm going to jump around a little bit, but a big issue, not just for the Free State, but the whole country at the moment, is this drought. And as an agricultural province, this is something that hits hard here, hits the economy hard here, and starts to trickle through to things like unemployment. What is the situation in terms of the drought and its effects on the economy, and what interventions are you putting in place to help some of these farmers? Because some of the stories that I've been reading, one farmer had 40 cows, he sold 15 just to live and survive. 6 died, and that left him with literally just less than a third of the cows that he had. And this is typical, I think, of what a lot of the farmers are dealing with here.
Yeah. Well, the issue of climate change has been raised globally. And I think as a province and as the country, we are hard hit by drought. And that's where we need to bring our minds together. As the minister was saying yesterday, great minds discuss ideas. I think this is the time for all of us as South Africans to bring our minds together and see as to how we move forward. Because the issue of drought doesn't just affect farmers, it affects almost all of us. It affects food prices, but we have certain interventions. We have established a task team which is led by MEC Kompela in terms of disaster, working together with COGTA and Treasury. And we are working together with the Minister of Water and Sanitation. And that's why, working together with other NGOs and MPOs, we have supplied around Qwaqwa, we have supplied boreholes, almost 11. In Senegal, there are 6 boreholes, and around Alual North, part of the Free State. So the borehole strategy is one of the plans. But I think we need experts now to come into the space. There isn't any way that we can manufacture rain if there are such means and methods of making sure that we deal with this issue of drought. Because if you give farmers tomorrow, you buy them cattle, the next day is dead. You'll keep on doing so. We have to find alternatives. And if you go to a place called Cornelia, we are able to produce some feed within 7 days for the cattle. That's one of the strategies we are going to roll out throughout the province. And the cattle are not dying there because in 7 days' time you can be able to feed them.
All right, I'm going to come to you, MEC Education. We've talked about the successes, we've talked about the achievements that you're talking about, but the statistics are suggesting that perhaps whilst you're still in the 80s, you're not doing as well as you did when you hit 87%. So it's been like this slow decline. My fear is you might be 79 next year. Will that happen?
No worries. But let me first start by thanking the Department of Public Works, especially for the beautiful infrastructure. And I'm sure the message that we want to communicate is to the parents of the farm learners to say, it does not mean because you were poor, your children are supposed to be poor. It does not mean because you were a farm worker, your children must be farm workers. And I think this intervention is actually trying to change and make the radical change in terms of the lives of those people. And I'm raising this issue because I know that we also have got the challenge that some of the parents are afraid to send not comfortable to send their children to boarding schools. You can understand that having to part with your child by the time they are 5 years or 6 years, it may be strenuous. But I think what we are doing today, we are showing off these facilities, and also we are making sure that now we are upon some of the best principals. Mr. Seheri is one of the best principals. In fact, he's really been modest in terms of what he has done to the school. We came here 2010, myself and the deputy minister, and the school was at 14%. And then we met the parents, we met the assembly, we met the teachers. And then he made a commitment to say, I as a leader, I'm taking responsibility to change the school. And we are very excited that the following year, the school moved to 80%. But I remember that some of the classes that he was attending these children were attending at Central University of Technology. I went to see him and some 4 children had not attended. And he was driving up and down the farming areas with his own car, looking for those kids. Wow. And I think that is the kind of principle we want for the farm school level. And because of that effort of going around looking for these kids, got them, took them to university for extra classes, the school was able to get 100%. So we want to say to the people who are poor, the people who are staying in the farms, invest in education. Education is a proper catalyst that can change your conditions in the future.
All right, so you haven't
I can come to your question.
Yes.
No, there were serious problems last year, in the past 2 years. And the minister, I'm sure, when she was announcing the results, she was very honest in terms of outlining those challenges, especially the issue of progress learners. You know, there's nothing wrong about progressing learners. But I think what was wrong was that there was no criteria. So a child could fail all the subjects and still go to grade 12. I know that when I was interacting with some children in Botshabelo, or some teachers were telling me that these children, when you tell them to study hard, they say, no, don't worry, teacher, there's something called top up. So they call this process top up, that you don't have to read, you will still go to grade 12. So these are the things that were the negative consequences of a good policy. But I think going forward, we said that with the minister, we have cleaned the policy. Now the progress learners should have passed at least 4 subjects. They should have passed law, which is language of learning and teaching, which is English. And therefore, if you look at the children that we have now, they do have the capacity, the potential to succeed. So in terms of intervening in their programs, you don't have to go and fetch them at home. Some of these kids just registered at the beginning of the year, and then came December, you know, they were bunking school throughout. So the conditions is now very clear. If you bunk school, you will be deregistered. But otherwise, this is what has been affecting our results. Watch us this year. You'll see we are bouncing back.
Okay, we've got to take a quick break, but just before that, if you could answer this question very quickly. I'm always worried about the kids that register in grade 1, but don't show up in grade 12. And we're losing, I think, on average, about half of our kids along the way. Do we know where they are, what they're doing, and how are we helping them?
No, Peter, this is an issue of what we are going to discuss in the summit. I think that statistics is generalized completely. But remember that children are not all gifted in the same way. It can't mean that every child is prone to be academic. There are many children who become vocational, who may, after compulsory phase of grade 9, they opt for TVET colleges, others opt to go and work, and so on and so on. So there are many there are diseases. So there's an array of things that takes children out of the school. But I think what is important is that, as the President has said, President Jacob Zuma, that we need to try and encourage as many children as possible to stay as long as possible into the schools. But we all understand that not every child is supposed to go to university.
Right.
There are many other fields, vocational, mechanics, and so on and so on and so on. Chefs, all those things are important. People who are actually making your makeup here, those things are very, very important. They are skills
for me.
that can be used.
All right, okay. In fact, we're going to take a quick break, and then my makeup person is going to come onto the stage and sort my life out. We'll be back right after this.